Hi, this is Mark News from Plant Talk Radio. Thanks for subscribing and listening to our podcast, Your Gardening Questions from Plant Talk Radio. If you have a gardening question you'd like our host Fred Howard to answer, send him an email. The email address is fred@planttalkradio.com. Now for today's question. You know, as long as we're talking about moisture, we had an email this week from Randy, fred@planttalkradio.com. And Randy says, I have an area in my yard that doesn't drain very well and stays a little bit wet. Would a red maple work in that area, or any other suggestions for a tree in that area?
Well, definitely red maple would work in that area. And then its cousin, silver maple, would work in that area. The silver maple, in a refined area, by that meaning someone's yard, I always hesitate to recommend them.
I was going to say, the only time I've ever heard you talk about silver maple, you also talk about a chainsaw.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I won't really vary from that very far. However, its first cousin, so to speak, the red maple or red maples, because there are a number of them, are quite comfortable in, I'm going to call it, more moist or even wet soil. Then we can move on from there, because that is a yes to his question. But things like, and it depends on his needs, the Atlantic white cedar, or arborvitae as we mainly know it, can handle some moisture. Bald cypress and its near cousin, pond cypress, both can handle moisture. Pond cypress, I've seen stand literally right at the edge of the water, and seem to be, well, they obviously can handle it. And then down in the south, I went fishing one time where there were pond cypress, and the knees were sticking up, and there was 3 foot of water over every tree, and they were magnificent. So very definitely those two. Then the Freeman maple, which is a cross between red and silver. And I have to give a little bit. I have a friend I argue with. We can always part company, but he thinks the Freeman maple is the way to go. It is the red for fall color. It is the durability and fast growth of the silver and so on. Then we go to London plane tree, which we just talked about, or sycamore, or its refined condition called London plane tree, will work. River birch is named because it belongs in, I'm going to call it, a lower, wetter area. Now, not necessarily a swamp, but then as swamps go, down in the south, I call them ditch trees, the Sweet Bay magnolia. Now, Sweet Bay magnolia is one of my favorite ornamentals up here. They're not at all hard to grow, but down in the Carolinas, that darn thing will come up out of a puddle. It's just, it's quite. So then, as the rest of the question might be answered by the fact, depends on the size of tree he needs, because the Freeman maple, the reds and so on, are going to be 35 to 55, 60-foot trees. Bald cypress and pond cypress are both going to hit probably 60 feet or so, with a significant trunk, of course. The river birch, I must have been missing in class the day and didn't get complete notes, because I've used it too close to some things. And to my chagrin, I was with my professor at one point. He said, "Man, look at that plant." And I turned, like, what plant? He said, that river birch. And I said, I don't see a river birch. He said, are you blind? No. I didn't know river birch could have a 24 to 30 inch diameter trunk.
Yeah.
Now, I just, you live and learn. And it's especially embarrassing when you're 5 years out of school and your old professor has to tell you, hey, you must have been absent that day or not paying attention, because he could grind it in, I'll tell you. But anyhow, to answer his question then, the Sweet Bay, the red maple types, pin oak is another one. We used to get licensed to be able to do it and go dig pin oaks out of the swampy part of the woods north of Columbus. They love that. And it's interesting, because just as things go in pin oak, if the soil is a little bit acidic and it releases the natural compounds in the soil, the iron in particular, then the tree will grow and just be fabulous. If its soil is alkaline and that ties up some of the iron in the soil. It can go yellow and even go to the point of dying. So I'd be careful with pin oak, but they're a fantastic tree. So I hope that answers his question and confuses the dickens out of him.
Well, okay, so my question would be, of all of those trees that can tolerate wet feet, we do get periods of very dry weather here, especially this time of year, usually, not this year.
That's
but
right.
Which one of those can also tolerate the dry conditions for a while?
Interesting that you asked that, and I think the best answer is all of them.
Okay.
Now, because I'm thinking of where I can remember each being. It seems strange, but the bald cypress can handle dry areas. The tree just adjusts. The pond cypress might be the one to be careful of. To my knowledge, it would be the one least apt to handle hot, dry, and the whole rest of them can handle the rest. I mean, I always recommend that in the case of summer and so on, at least every 3 to 4 weeks, you turn on the sprinkler under a tree and let it run for 4 hours. Just any tree. But if that doesn't happen, I think they'd all survive.
Hey, thanks again for listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe to our other podcasts as well, the Plant of the Week podcast and the Plant Talk Radio podcast, all on iTunes or your favorite podcast player. If you'd like to sponsor a daily podcast, contact us at fred@planttalkradio.com. To find out more about Fred Hauer and Plant Talk Radio, visit our website, planttalkradio.com.
Circle270media.com